Hi guys, my name is Mohammed Javed. Performance is my passion, and today on The Young Driver, I'm reviewing the 2006 Volvo S60 2.5T. It's a really cool car, and you wouldn't really notice that if you just see it on the street, but I'll explain why this really deserves your respect the next time you see one of these at the red lights. But let's start off with front styling. I think Volvo designed it pretty well. I mean, this would be considered a sleeper, and a sleeper in car terms means a car that you see, you don't know that it's fast, but it is fast. So in that term, you don't have any outrageous grills or splitters here. Everything looks pretty standard from up here. It looks good, but it doesn't look necessarily fast. Moving on to the side, you don't get any crazy fender flares. You just get a very basic side. I mean, you get a molding here and turn signals, since this is a European style car, but all in all, nothing points at this as a really fast car as such. But I really do like the wheels. They could be bigger, 16 inches, kind of small, maybe like 17s or 18s, but they did have the option of those on higher spec models. Moving down over here, you do get these weird door handles. Most cars don't have these anymore, but since this is a European style car, the doors open in this fashion rather than a handle that you pull like that. But it's all good. Moving on to the back, from this angle, it looks better than the front, I would say, since you get this cool exhaust at the back, which is actually not that warm to the touch. It's pretty cold. You get sensors, backup sensors. This doesn't have a rear view camera though, since it's not new enough as such. But not as the front and the side, nothing points at it as an outrageous car. It just looks like any average Volvo, except maybe this 2.5T sticker, but most people probably don't understand the meaning of that. That is referring to the engine size though, if you are curious as to what that is. So taking a look at the engine, it is a pretty cool one. It's a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine with a turbocharger. Makes about 208 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque. That's a good number for this size of a vehicle, and if you look here, you could tell that it's 5 cylinders with 5 individual air inlets for the different pistons, which is cool. Something else that you get here, which is weird, I mean, of course, they're going to put that sticker there. Mercedes puts it on there, so does Volvo apparently. You get another sticker up there too, which is for your airbag. So it tells you to basically disconnect or turn the airbag off before removing the steering wheel and bits like that, since it's kind of dangerous. But you know, it's Volvo, and they want you to be safe, because that's a main selling point of the vehicle. Something else that's interesting is if you come over here, you see that the engine is over here. So the main block is here, and the front axle ends about here. So the bulk of the engine is way in front of the axle. That's just a characteristic of Volvos in general, but that does make them a bit front heavy, but it does give them character, which is pretty cool, I'd say. Moving down to this is your spot for jumping the battery, but the battery is actually in the back of the car if we move here. So would be basically, looking back here, if you open these two and you pull it up, there's where your battery would be. It's for better weight distribution, because, you know, as I said, the engine is really front heavy, so they put the battery back here to balance it out a bit. But you know, that's really clever engineering, I'd say, because you still get your jumping cable up front, but you don't actually have to touch the battery out back. So all in all, I'm really impressed with the engine. It sounds really good too, so let's take a listen to that. Let's move on to interior styling. So taking a look at the interior, it is a pretty nice place to be. Even though this is 06, everything has aged pretty well. So everything is decently soft to the touch. So this is probably the hardest material I just touched, but this is really soft to the touch. Everything is just wrapped in leather. The seats especially. I mean, they do have a bit of wear and tear, I guess. Like they might sag over time, but it does feel pretty good. Even the handbrake, like has something, it's not leather, but it's better than just hard plastic. This is called walnut, but it might just be plastic by the looks of it, but it does look nice throughout the interior. The steering wheel is a premium item, I'd say. It does feel nice, leather wrapped. It has stitching on it, black stitching, but in this driving position, I could really see everything fine. It does have great visibility, except for this, maybe this one beam or two, but they are, other than that, everything I can see pretty fine, even behind me too. It's not terrible in terms of rear visibility. Something that this car didn't age too well with was the sat-nav system. So this didn't necessarily have it, right? But some of the other cars that did have it, not too many people talked great stuff about it, let's just say. So that wasn't a great system. It's just easier to not get it if you buy one of these secondhand. So all in all, I'm impressed with this stuff. Like, the radio is pretty good. The climate control is pretty good. It had climate control, which was a great feature for the time. Instead of those weird knobs that's like hot, cold. No, this has actual temperatures you could choose from. You have a valet lock. So if I turn the car on right now, okay, after it stops beeping, I can show you this. So it's this button. And basically what that means is it disables the rear trunk lid, so you can't open it later on, which is pretty interesting. It's not a really common feature, but it is interesting how they had it on this car. Something else that you get, if I put the signals on, you hear a pretty loud click. It's prominent. But if I turn this on, the hazards, well, you could hear it right now, but if I turn the car off, there's no clicking, there's nothing here either. This still flashes because the US law mandated that you have to have some sort of a reminder that your hazards are on, but you probably couldn't notice it in the peripheral vision. I can't see it from here, so that's pretty interesting, honestly, especially for Volvo. That they're really safe cars, but like, I'm surprised that they went with that decision. Something else that is really good are the memory seats. I really like them. So I mean, they're electric, so it wasn't a very common feature. Normal cars back then, but this was nearly 40 grand when it was new, so it's good to have them in a car at that price point. And speaking of 40 grand, you could pick these up pretty cheap now, so it is a good secondhand car. So taking another look at some of the other buttons, you get winter mode, so that basically starts it off in second gear every time. I'll show you the difference between winter mode on and off, and you also get a little gauge here. So if I was in drive, that's in drive, so that's drive, and then winter mode, so that highlights it there. Something else that you get over here, so it right now shows my average speed, so 36 miles per hour average speed. There's miles per gallon, like right now what you're achieving, but we're not moving at all, so it shows nothing. That's the average miles per gallon, and that's how much fuel you have until you run out, or how many miles you could drive until you run out of fuel. But that computer's pretty interesting. There's this one too, which shows you different distances that you've covered, and this one, oh sorry, I bumped the wipers, and this one adjusts the clock. So right now it's 38, 39, 40, 41. Let's bring it back down. Okay, but basically you could change the clock with that one. There is no center clock. That's the interesting point about this car. So it's really driver oriented in that term. Something else that you get, which is interesting, so you get this button, which is you drop the rear headrest. So if we take a look back there, it just drops them automatically, and you have to put them up manually, which is cool. This is your traction control button, so you have to hold it, and then traction control is off. Spin control, that's what Volvo calls it. You also get this, the fuel door locker, so it should tell in the computer in a second.
Button on the end.
Okay, one message. Okay, fuel door unlocked, fuel hatch unlocked, yeah. And it automatically locks when you drive again. But all in all the computers in this car are pretty interesting. I think we should take it for a spin as well. Sitting in the passenger seat, it is pretty quiet. I mean, it does have double pane glass, so it makes the ride pretty quiet. But since everything is quietened down, you could be going really fast and not notice it. The only reference you have for the speed is everything outside you and how quickly it's passing by. But other than that, you kind of have to guess that you're doing speed limit.
There you go, I'll do a little one.
Quick acceleration.
Torque steer.
You definitely get some torque steer. It's pulling. But you could definitely hear the engine. I mean, it's not really exhaust noise, but it's more of the engine out front, so it doesn't sound too bad. It sounds cool. And that was with traction control on, so it still fights the wheel that hard. I mean, we're going through this corner, and it honestly clings on well. The whole thing about it being front heavy, yeah, if you really are going to track it all the time, then you might have some issues in terms of understeer. But right now, going through these corners at 50 miles an hour, you can't really. It doesn't really lean too bad. I mean, the suspension is comfortable. You feel none of the bumps, but it's still supportive, which is a great aspect of the car. It makes it a great daily driver and a great sleeper at that. So right now the traction control is off. Let's see if we could hear the tires at this point. That has a lot of wheel spin. And that's speed limit. But dang, that was crazy.
Wheel hop and everything.
Yeah, the torque does come pretty low down with this engine. That's the benefit of the 5 cylinders. You don't have to go too high up in the rev range to get the power. It's not a VTEC. You don't have to sit there until it kicks in. You press on the throttle and you feel it immediately.
Like here, if I slow down to 40, like
yeah,
here,
40, and then
I can just dip into it like half throttle.
And it picks up again.
And we're at 50 and 60. And that's like half throttle. The steering in this car is really heavy. It's very heavy, has really good feedback. The car, while being comfortable, it still handles like it's on rails. Like, it's really nice. Like, I can fly around traffic circles and be just fine.
F-150, move. Oh yeah, you hear the tires. You really hear the tires in the corner. 30 miles an hour, lots of steering lock, so I mean, you would hear it a little bit. That's when the understeer might kick in with a Volvo.
It never shakes.
But you have to have plenty of lock before, or a lot of speed before you actually start noticing that. On a day-to-day driving basis, it's not bad. Here is the winter mode, so if we try that now, try flooring it at this point, at this red light,
sure,
and we'll see the difference. So last time we really floored it, we heard lots of tire screech, lots of wheel hop.
I'm just gonna stop so that it gets...
Alright. That's full throttle in winter mode for you. So it's in higher gears. It does limit you, which is, I don't know if that's, I wouldn't call it great, but it's manageable.
It's useful in winter, but other than that, it's not.
Volvos do have really great build quality too. Even though this is a car of the, I mean, this is a not small car, but it's not terribly large either, and it still weighs 3,300 pounds. So I mean, okay, yeah, the engine's a little bit bigger than your average eco box, but it shouldn't be too much heavier, except everything is really
overbuilt.
Yeah, overbuilt, really thick steel, I'd say. Alright, right now we're sitting at 40. How long does it take to get to 50 from here? And
that's half throttle. We're at 60.
We're at 60 right then.
I mean 50.
Yeah, 50.
We're not 40, we're at 40 miles an hour. We're driving 40.
Neutral revs. Sounds decent from inside. Launch. That was wheel spin.
It's a pure wheel spin and understeer. That's it.
Alright, now that we have to make a U-turn, look at the turning circle. Observe this.
Yeah, this is gonna be terrible. I'll probably have to do a 3-point turn.
Alright, let's go.
That's full lock.
And that's, yeah, there you go.
It turns like a truck. It really does. Does not make doing U-turns very, and it has really heavy steering, so it's a little bit of a workout whenever you need to do a U-turn.
Alright, highway driving.
It's 30 miles
This is where the five pot really counts, the 5-cylinder. Oh, it pulls. It definitely pulls. And that's 60.
60 miles an hour for sure. Totally was not like 85. That wasn't even flooring it either. That was like half throttle.
Yeah.
It still had plenty of. This steering wheel's pretty thick. I like it.
There's the torque steer and understeer. And
Does
tire
not
spin.
grip at all.
No.
Well, it really hooked up that time.
It did hook up.
I mean, that was only half throttle, but.
And that's speed limit, but yeah.
0 to 60, I got it at 5.8.
That's not a bad time, honestly,
Yeah.
for a car of this age. So to give this Volvo S60 2.5T a score, I'm going to be using my old scoring system, which had to do with secondhand cars, cheap ones that teens could pick up and drive around. So with that said, let's start off with the insurance category. At the end of the day, it's kind of considered a luxury brand, so OEM parts, they're not really the cheapest. And more said about that, I mean, this specific one, it's well equipped with a lot of options. That's going to make insurance even more expensive. The only good thing about the insurance is Volvos are really safe cars. I mean, this was the safest sedan in its category when it was brand new, and it's still one of the best ones today. So, depending on your insurance carrier and what their policies are, you're going to get different prices, but I'm just going to give this a 7 because it's not the best. You know, it still has a lot of features, and it's going to cost a lot for them to maintain, but it's still a really safe car, and your life isn't at risk when driving one, so I think it deserves a 7 out of 10 in this section. Moving on to the parental section, you know, why should your dad buy you one of these? And here's the first thing, right? Yes, it has 210 horsepower, and it's really fast for a stock street car, but at the end of the day, it's still a stock street car. It doesn't really go higher than 140 miles an hour. And acceleration, yes, it's fast compared to average cars, but it's not too much. You're not going to be able to get into too much trouble with this car. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's still a Volvo. It's practical. It's really safe. You know, your kid is in there. He's going to be safe in pretty much any sort of accident, okay? He's going to be able to get out. And chances are they are going to have an accident. You know, they're teens. It's their first couple of years driving. Whatever, they might crash. And, well, at the end of the day, if they do crash and they do drive like a maniac, like, you know, Gardner kind of does. He's driven to the top speed of this car before, and, you know, not too much on that anymore, but still, you know, he gets pulled over by cops all the time, you know. It's pretty funny, but if your kid does do this stuff, part of it's just your fault, you know, for being their parent like that. I mean, you had to show him something to make him want to do that. You know, you were a bad role model for him. You weren't a good mentor for him, so that's probably why he's doing it. So you can only blame yourself for anything that goes wrong with this vehicle. So really, I think parents are really going to want to buy this vehicle for their kids. It's safe, and it's pretty decently cheap as well. I'm going to give this section an 8 out of 10, which is a pretty good score. Let's move on to the kids section. You know, why would I want this car? Why would Gardner want to buy one of these cars? Why did he buy one? And at the end of the day, I think this is a 10 out of 10 score. You know, for a car of this price point, $4,500 doesn't buy you too much in performance nowadays, and 210 horsepower, that's really good. I mean, a Volkswagen Golf GTI from 2005 makes about that much, a little bit less, give or take, but, I mean, it makes 10 horsepower less, right? And the thing is, it costs a heck of a bit more than this car, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a performance bargain, and you'd kind of be crazy not to buy one if you see one for cheap on the market with a good condition. So, saying that, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, and Well, that's going to add up to 25 out of 30. This is one of the best performance sedans that you could buy for your kid, or you could buy for yourself if you're a teen. It's a great first car, and if you're into if you're into fast cars and you like driving fast, well, it's a great, cheap first option. So, hey, I really like the car. I really enjoyed testing it. Gardner, thank you. I know I made a little bit of fun of you at the end for driving like a maniac, but that was all a joke. Thanks for the car. I really enjoyed reviewing it. And as always, my name is Mohammed Javed. Performance is my passion. And I'll see you all next time on The Young Driver.